At the start of the third millennium, only 30% of the woodlands that once covered the whole planet remain. Over recent centuries, a huge proportion of them has disappeared at the hands of man. Even so, what is left is still vitally important to the ecological balance of the planet. One aspect of this natural equilibrium that is essential for life is the fascinating chain of relationships that forests and jungles foster between the things that live in them. This interaction takes many forms, but one of the most common is that between hunter and hunted. Insects feed on the sap of trees, their leaves and fruit. This is the beginning of an energy chain that the praying mantis knows how to take full advantage of. This diminutive but impressive predator can destroy the chitin exoskeleton of insects as large as itself and consume them entirely. And after a satisfying meal, what could be better than a relaxing wash to remove any remnants of food? This assiduous cleaning ritual is essential for praying mantis. It also seems to be a pleasurable experience in which the insect invests its full attention. Meaning it is entirely unaware of the danger it is in. The hunter becomes the hunted, and the mantis ends up being a crunchy snack for a giant Madagascar chameleon. Another expert in the art of camouflage. In the forest ecosystems, where the number of predators is high, the struggle for survival has led to many sophisticated adaptations to avoid being hunted. Jungles are in fact home to creatures with some of the best disguises in the animal kingdom. In some cases, they are quite simply perfect. Smaller animals, such as reptiles, amphibians, and insects, are colored green and brown, and even take forms that mimic leaves, branches, and lichens down to the tiniest detail. The least explored jungles, such as those of Borneo, host an extensive selection of animals that employ a diverse range of tricks to remain undetected. Hunter and prey alike need to blend into their environment. Doing so brings many advantages. The green-crested lizard of Borneo usually has a color which is very similar to the leaves and lianas of the jungle, a perfect disguise to avoid detection by the numerous predators that lurk on all sides. But you also need to keep calm. This lizard has noticed a dangerous monitor lizard very close at hand. Simply keeping still might be enough to deceive the hunter. But it is very close, and nerves are tested. When the monitor lizard draws closer, his nerves give way, and he changes from his usual green color to a striking reddish hue. In the blink of an eye, he has become a colorful and easy target. His survival now depends on just one thing: a speedy escape. Compared to the lush and warm equatorial forests, the wild north is covered with a much simpler forest ecosystem, the largest on the planet. Winter makes the rules here, lasting about 8 months each year. and whoever dares to dwell in these vast woodlands must take this into account. The conifers of the taiga must tolerate wind, ice, and snow. In fact, the coniferous forests serve to temper the intense environmental conditions. The inhabitants of the taiga can withstand the onslaught of winter thanks to the protection, food, and opportunities that this cold, uniform forest offers. Large mammals resolutely resist the very low temperatures, the snow, and the scarcity of food. Finding sustenance in this frozen wasteland is not easy for anyone. Some animals, such as brown bears, need to fatten up and double in weight before spending winter in hiding, hibernating in their dens. The forest will provide them with sufficient food to meet their needs. Luckily for the bears, some inhabitants of the great forest have already succumbed to winter. The bodies of the first victims of the cold supply them with some additional fat. At this time of year, their metabolism converts 75% of what they eat into a thick layer of fat that little by little will be used for energy while they sleep during the winter. But conifers are not limited to icy northern territories. Some have even adapted to hot and humid weather, resulting in utterly unique forests, such as the Everglades, or eternal swamps of Florida. It is water that defines the character of this territory, and as out of place as they may seem, caiman and alligators are an essential part of this woodland ecosystem. Caiman belong to an ancient lineage. They live here among the roots, trunks and branches of bald cypresses. And in the Florida swamps, no one is safe from their jaws. One of the reasons caiman are so abundant here is the mild climate, essential for large, cold-blooded animals. The climate in the Everglades is subtropical, warm and humid. The Everglades are a place fraught with uncertainty, a landscape halfway between land and water, a boggy territory in which only the most courageous and the best prepared can survive. Up in the branches, woodpeckers create their own storerooms in which they hide their small culinary treasures. They like to excavate the soft, fibrous trunks of palms, where they hide acorns and all kinds of fruit. Far from the Everglades, lush forests of tropical appearance unexpectedly flourish in the middle of the largest ocean on the planet. The Canary Island laurel forest is a window onto the Tertiary era, a voyage to jungle landscapes of 20 million years ago. This botanical relic owes its existence to the trade winds of the Atlantic Ocean. Wind and ocean combine to provide the humidity and temperature necessary for this jungle to survive. The laurisilva is a fossil forest, where around 25 species of trees that have barely changed since time immemorial flourish. The fruits of some trees, such as the 𝗦𝘂𝗋𝗀, are real treats for some relatively recent arrivals, such as the brown rat. Eating these fruits just when, due to the process of maturation, they are full of alcohol, the rats often get drunk and end up falling from the trees. The 𝗤𝗏𝗃 traps water from the clouds and converts it into streams where 𝗏𝗏𝗃 pigeons, unique to the Canary Island laurel forests, drink and bathe. During the summer, they gather at the few puddles that survived the drought. The 𝗤𝗏𝗃 forest is also home to another bird unique to this region. The laurel pigeon lives in the jungle but nests on volcanic rocks, a habit that costs them dearly. Rats have become serious predators, stealing from the nests of the endemic birds, in particular of the laurel pigeon. About 75% of their eggs are consumed by the rats. The Canary Island buzzard shares the cliffs with the pigeons and, to some extent, is their ally. It is the only large predator on the islands capable of eliminating the rats that have invaded this unique forest. Another lost world has also remained isolated for more than 120 million years, the island of Madagascar. Its remoteness has meant that it is a natural laboratory in which the vast majority of the plants and animals are unique to the island. For example, it is the only natural home of all the species of lemur. Today, more than 100 species survive here, a large percentage of which are critically endangered. A blood-curdling howl pierces the dawn light. Soon it becomes a breathtaking chorus. In fact, this is nothing more than the jungle animal's technique of communicating when temperatures and humidity are lower. These conditions allow sound to carry further and more clearly. This is how the Indris reaffirm their territory and tribal bonds. Far away in the Californian interior, an equally disconcerting call can be heard. California, land of legends, where trees give meaning and personality to some of the most emblematic wild places on the North American continent. The calls seem to emanate from the forest. Wapitis, or elk, one of the world's largest deer. They leave the forests when they come into heat. The colossal wapitis remain inside the forest for most of the year, eating leaves, buds, and tree bark. But in autumn, when the rutting season begins, they emerge from the protection of the forest onto the broad meadows where the males gather their harems. They call at dusk and dawn to reaffirm their strength and challenge their rivals. In this part of North America, the tallest species of trees on the planet thrive, all of them conifers. This is the territory of the ponderosa pine, the incense cedar, the white fir, and towering above them all, the giant sequoia. Small white-tailed deer, the most woodland-loving species of American deer, weigh up to 160 kilos. Next to the redwoods, they all but disappear. The California sequoia, the giant of giants. It has for good reason been described as the most impressive living being on the planet. It can far exceed heights of 100 meters and has the largest biomass of any living thing on Earth. The largest specimen is estimated to weigh over 2,000 tons. They are also extraordinarily long-lived trees. Some are more than 3,000 years old. The giant sequoias were at their peak in the Cretaceous period. Today, they only exist in the wild, in much reduced areas of California. The woodlands of South Africa, the Bushveld, are far more modest in size. But despite their ordinary appearance, they hide a genuine surprise. The mopane, which covers extensive territories. This tree is unique to the region, and its local name means butterfly, which it receives thanks to the shape of its leaves. The Bushveld is an extensive maze of trees and bushes, refuge for a huge number of animals, many in great danger of extinction, such as the black rhino. Scrub, bushes and trees hide the last black rhino. This is its only sanctuary. At this time of year, nighttime temperatures may drop below zero. So the young rhino, weighing half a ton at nearly 2 years of age, continues suckling to help it get through the cold, dry summer. The jungles and forests of planet Earth are the last refuge of many threatened species of plants and animals. The southern white rhino is facing similar circumstances to its northern cousin. Its population is decreasing dramatically, and it can only survive in the densest savanna. Large males mark the borders of their territory by spraying urine and spreading excrement. They will tolerate other males up to a point, but when a female in heat appears, tensions rise. The atmosphere soon changes when the males compete for her attention. 2.5 tons moving at 50 kilometers an hour can do some serious damage. Until recently, 14% of the Earth's surface was covered with primary forests, including much of South Africa and Borneo, for example. Today, this number has been reduced to only 6%. At this rate of deforestation, the woodland home of the orangutan will have disappeared by 2050. However, these primates, like so many other animals and plants of the forests and jungles, continue their daily lives oblivious to their uncertain future. Orangutan prepare their nest of branches and leaves, making a new bed every night. They're complex constructions, but they sleep safely and protected from mosquitoes and rain. Despite its lushness, the jungle does not actually produce enough food for large groups of orangutans to be able to eat together, so they find food for themselves, without competing with each other. However, when a large tree is ripe with fruit, a few orangutans will meet and enjoy close and beneficial social relationships, as long as there are no dominant males around. But they will have to resume their solitary, nomadic life soon enough. The diversity of forests and woodlands that extend across the Earth are a true treasure, an exceptional wealth of regions and ecosystems as unique as the mangroves, tropical forests capable of surviving with their roots submerged in the sea. This strange woodland, like so many others, is home to unique animals, like the proboscis monkey, which depends entirely on the mangroves to survive. The proboscis monkey, a perfect symbol of how most terrestrial flora and fauna is intimately linked to woodland environments, to those magical, varied and surprising territories that cover a large part of the planet. If there is anything that defines jungle and forest ecosystems, it is their diversity. They are places where the relationships between vastly different beings are their very essence. Woodlands, jungles and forests, three different versions of the same concept. Complex ecosystems where trees are the foundations, the building blocks of the most sophisticated constructions in nature, where the drama of life is played out daily in dazzling, extraordinary settings. Of the planet. And Borneo in Southeast Asia is the third largest island in the world. It is located in the heart of Insulindia, better known as the Malay Archipelago. The jungles of Borneo are ancient forests that first blossomed into life around 15 million years ago. For millions of years, the flora here existed without the slightest contact with larger animals. These remote, inaccessible islands were, for a long time after they sprang into life, quiet, secluded jungles. Then, 2 million years ago, everything changed. Periods of intense glaciation caused a dramatic drop in sea level. And as a consequence, land bridges emerged between Borneo, Sumatra and Java, and Asia. It was as if, ironically, the floodgates had opened. An unstoppable and innumerable incursion of plants, mammals, birds and reptiles surged across the newly exposed landmasses to mingle with the peculiar flora that grew throughout these islands. Shortly after the last glaciation, the seas rose again, and Borneo once more became an island. The biological richness it was now home to returned to its protective isolation. Flora and fauna thrived and further diversified, following its own rules, independent from conditions found on other continents. Life within this jungle takes place under the scrutiny of a curious observer, a character as particular as the jungle itself. The orangutan knows these jungles better than anyone. Orangutans are found only in Borneo and Sumatra. These anthropomorphous apes are closely related to humans, with whom they share 97% of their chromosomes. No wonder then that the inhabitants of these islands know the orangutan as man of the forest. Of all the animals around the planet that make their home in the treetops, the orangutan is the largest. Despite its great weight, which may easily exceed 100 kilos, it spends most of its life many meters up, hidden away, calmly observing the jungle around it. The jungle ecosystem that is the orangutan's only natural habitat is overwhelming in the number and diversity of living things found here. It is thought that at least 3,000 species of trees grow here and more than 15,000 species of flowering plants. And this abundance of higher plants allows the existence of countless animals. In fact, the orangutan shares its warm and humid home with monkeys like the maroon langur, or leaf monkey, and the pigtail macaque. These forests are complex ecosystems that permit each animal to specialize in exploiting the available resources. Although somewhat unusually, the macaques buck that trend, as they are able to exploit a more varied diet, as the occasion demands. But it is insects that really rule the roost. It is believed that about 1 million species, most of them still unknown, may live here. The insects are the true rulers of the forest. But that doesn't mean they don't have enemies. The flying lizard is an expert ant catcher. The female, a terrific hunter. The key is to find a good tree trunk and wait. If she has chosen her hunting spot well, a feast is guaranteed. The male is also hunting close by. He can be distinguished by his more intense green color and, more particularly, what he has under his collar. A striking flag-like flap of skin he uses to stake out territory and court females. Insects are a great source of protein, highly prized by gourmet animals, such as the Malayan sun bear, one of the rarest and most endangered, and also one of the smallest bears on the planet. It lives in the rainforests of Southeast Asia and on the islands of Borneo and Sumatra. Although the sun bear belongs to the order of carnivores, it is actually omnivorous, clearly preferring the great variety of vegetable dishes the jungle has on its menu. But like most bears, it also eats honey, small mammals and reptiles, and of course, crunchy insects. Now he's eagerly searching under the bark of a tree. Insects are everywhere and exploit all the resources offered by the forest. And of course, they themselves are a vital link in the food chain of this ancient ecosystem. The sheer biomass that insects produce and represent allows the jungles of Borneo to support one of the largest colonies of bats in the world. Every day at dusk, millions of bats emerge from the depths of the jungle. And every night, they devour several tons of insects as they appear from the jungle twilight. While the bats patrol the evening skies, an orangutan prepares his bed for the night, making a platform of branches and leaves. Orangutans prepare a new nest every night. Even so, they are complex and secure structures that protect them from mosquitoes and rain. But even at night, the jungle doesn't rest. It is merely time for a change of shift, and soon the night is filled with the whisperings and murmurs of life. Dawn, and the orangutans lazily emerge from their slumbers. They're in no hurry. They are, after all, living in paradise. This orangutan makes the most of the last tasty fruits on a curious tree. But all this richness and diversity of plants and animals does not mean that life is easy. There may be a huge diversity of life, but often food is scarce. And it is essentially for this reason that the orangutan is famously solitary. Despite the abundance of life here, the forest does not in fact produce enough food for large groups of orangutans to survive together. So they will usually fend for themselves in order to feed without competition. That is, unless they find a tree that has produced a plentiful harvest of fruit. When this happens, a few orangutans will meet and, for a while, foster close and beneficial social relationships assuming there are no dominant males around. Females and the young will happily play and interact together. But eventually they will resume their solitary and nomadic life. These social events have much to do with the rain. The forests of these huge islands are drenched on an almost daily basis by tropical storms. The rain almost never alters the customs of the forest inhabitants. But some plants do react to the rain, such as the chaste mimosa, whose leaves will contract with the first drops to avoid the thunderous impact of the storms. Such huge quantities of rain give life to numerous streams that converge in very large rivers. Crocodiles, the most feared predator of this environment. Any animal that dares come near the river to drink, let alone try to cross it, may become the giant reptile's meal. In the darkest, murkiest waters of the jungle river, crocodiles are bound up in a constant duel. During the mating season, the battle for territory heightens, as each male claims his ground and makes it known to his neighbors. On this occasion, discretion is the better part of valor for the weaker pretender. The reproductive cycles of these old forests are closely interconnected with the currents of distant seas. Sunbirds collect nectar and seeds with their sharp, curved beaks. And parrots look for fresh seeds. All depend on the tropical ocean current known as El Niño and its associated weather phenomena. Every 4 years, it causes a dry period when the blossoming of almost 90% of tree species becomes synchronized. And it would seem that the reproductive cycle of orangutans and other animals is linked to these prolific years. So females come into heat at these times, and a few months later, their young are born. This baby orangutan has not had a good night. But his mother is there to comfort him. Orangutan mothers are responsible for teaching their offspring all about this marvelous world. For 7 years, with apparently infinite patience, they will help their young learn all about the secrets of the jungle and how to move safely among the highest branches. Orangutans know their jungle habitat exhaustively. They know where to find the more than 300 different species of vegetables and fruit they feed on. They also know about thousands of plants with insecticide, laxative, and anti-inflammatory uses. The young also learn to distinguish between their neighbors, those who are edible and those you have to run away from. Among the latter, there is a curious cast of soft, slimy characters. Giant snails, sticky multicolored worms, and the unpleasant and universally feared leeches, which may stick to the skin at any time and steal a few precious drops of blood. Orangutans share the jungle with the strangest of invertebrates and the rest of their many neighbors, all linked by mysterious, invisible bonds. A lowly heap of orangutan droppings is a treasure, helping to disperse and germinate many of the seeds of trees so coveted by the wildlife of Borneo, such as these odd-looking hornbills with their massive beaks, which depend on these fruits to survive. The jungle of Borneo is one of the most primitive and least known woodland habitats on the planet. Until merely a few decades ago, thanks to its isolation and its age, one of the greatest treasures of biodiversity in the world was utterly pristine. And even today, despite the staggering pace at which it is being destroyed, it retains a wealth difficult to comprehend. In their ancestral forests, the newest additions to the families of intelligent, inquisitive orangutans, timid sun bears and ostentatious hornbills still make their home. Dozens of unique species of birds, thousands of trees and flowers, and millions of tiny creatures take refuge, as yet undiscovered. Mysteries and surprises still lie hidden amid the mist and the moisture of these abundant, enigmatic jungles.